we last looked at polygrouping, which was just a way, for you to be able to select different polygroups. Well, to isolate your model, you draw a mask, you can click Shift W, I think it's Shift W, Control W rather, and make a polygroup. Draw a mask, Control W, make a polygroup. And then you can hold Control and Shift and click to select polygroups. So the whole reason that we use polygroups is for isolation. It makes it so much easier to select certain things, or sometimes you don't want to, maybe if I just want to work on this horn, and I don't want to see anything else, I could press F, and now I can just look at this horn alone, and I could just start working on this without having to look at everything else and be distracted. Because as artists and as sculptors, and we jump around a lot, but sometimes if you want to just focus in on something, then you might want to do this. You might just want to just focus on just this one piece of geometry. And polygroups allow you to hide what you don't want to see. Makes it so much easier because things can get kind of crazy. In ZBrush, things can get really crazy sometimes. So it's good. It's good to be able to hide away some of the stuff that you don't need right then and there. So that is why we use polygroups. Another reason why we use polygroups is for posing our model. It makes things a lot easier when you want to pose, because you can mask parts off and just pose it alone. So I'll show you an example of that. If I hold Control, I can make a mask on this, and then if I hold Control and Shift, I can bring back everything. Okay, so right now I have everything back. All right, and then what I can do is I can go Control and click, and I can invert the mask. And now what I'm left with is I'm left with the ability to be able to actually go in there and just, kind of just change the poly group, right? Just change where that group is, which essentially allowed me to kind of mask off the area. Another thing that you might want to do is you might want to split your model. Maybe you don't want his horns on the same level or the same layer, as everything else. So if he had horns, right? I'll press X to turn on symmetry. I'm going to hold Control, and I'm just going to go here. I'll grab my lasso tool, and I'll make a lasso selection just around this area here. I'll turn on, I'm going to do Shift W, or Shift, I think it's Control W. Oh, Shift F, sorry. I'm press Shift F, and then I could see my polygroups here. So first, let me get rid of all this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a group visible. Now everything is one polygroup, okay? I'm going to hold Control, and I'm going to drag, and I'm going to make a selection around the areas I want to be the horns. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'll say I could do either way. I could group a mask. That'll do it for me. Or you can do auto groups or something. Well, actually, you can't really do auto groups because it's on the same level. So just do group mask. That'll probably be the easiest for you to do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these horns and I'm going to put them on a separate layer. I'm going to teach you guys how I can do that. Now that we created the poly group, I can hold Control and Shift and click so I can isolate this. But then I'm going to hold Control and Shift and click again to just show this, okay? Now if I hold Shift, I can bring up my subtool. It won't collapse on me. And right here, what I can do is I can go down to split. Oops, you know what? I don't think I can do a split hidden because can't do a split hidden because there's geometry, I believe. We could probably only do a delete hidden, which we don't want to do. Well, we can't even do that, it looks like. So maybe I have to go down to my lower subdivision in order to do a split hidden. No, I think I have to freeze my subdivision levels. The mesh is partially hidden. Yeah, I know I hit it. Let's try bring it back. Let's freeze subdivision levels. I can't do what I wanted to do, but it's okay. Try to see what we can do instead. I think I can't do this because I have HD geometry on this model. I think. Let me just try it on this one. This was our original. I know it's okay. So we're gonna let's just try it again here. I guess I already made a selection on this. Well, it's not a good selection. So let's redo our polygroups on this one, okay? And polygroups is just what it sounds like. It allows you to group polys together. That's what it is. These are polys. These little squares are polys. So you group them in a logical sense to help you to be able to make a good selection. So group visible, and then we will go back and we will select. Let's get a good selection on this. Let's do right about there, like that. Okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll do a group mask. There we go. So we have that. We're going to Control Shift to click, Control Shift click again, and now we can hide that. Okay. Oh, and I still can't do my split hidden. That's so weird. Is it because I have the mask on? No. Okay. Here we go. We can do a group split. So it's okay. Let's just do a group split because that's still going to give us what we want. So I'm going to do a group split. It's going to say it's an undoable operation. No problem. All right. So what it did was it just split this onto a different layer for us. Okay. So now what you can do is you can go back to the dinosaur, well, the thing here, right? And you can see we have a hole here. So what we could do is we could try to close holes, and Zbrush will try to close the holes. It's not going to be able to do it because there's multiple levels here. So let's see what we can do. When you do something like this, like if you're going to lose your levels, you're going to have to reproject all the details onto a new mesh. That's the only, I would say that's the only issue. So for now, let's leave that the way it is. I'll probably I guess what I'll do is, you know what, I'll delete the subdivisions because we have this saved on a different file. So let's do this. Let's delete lower, okay, and then let's solo this out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go down to geometry and we're going to do a close holes on this, and this is going to close the hole for us. Okay, and then you can see the color got a little bit. Remember the color information is kind of baked in there, so that's why I did that. So we'll do like we'll pick another green again, I guess, and do a fill object on this. We want mRGB. Let's do fill object. Make it a little greener, I guess. Fill object. A little brighter. Oops, too bright. There. Okay. So I just did a fill object. You can see what happened here is that we were able to kind of fix this area, and then we can go back and we can just kind of smooth it out if we wanted to. We can also do another thing. We could probably take the flatten brush here, and we could probably hit that like that a little bit. Kind of makes it a little cleaner. So we can flatten it out and just kind of smooth it out. You know, whatever way you want to do it. Then what we can do is we can go back to, we can go back to our horns, and we can do the same thing for our horns. We'll delete lower, and we will close holes, or we could even dynamesh it too. That might help it out, but I'll just do a close holes on it and see what we get here. It's a little messy. Do a fill object on this. RGB. Do fill objects. We're going to change the color. And that's another thing too. You know, if you wanted a different material for something, you might need to break something up. So I'm going to make this like a skeleton color, like bones. And maybe I'll make it like a yellowish color, like that. And then we'll undo solo and bring that back. And that kind of sits in there. And then, you know, and then what you would do is you could just further sculpt on this now. So start going back in there, you know, with your clay brush or whatever, and just start going to town on it. I would probably I'd probably do like a dynamesh on this, because then you kind of have to resculpt it a little bit. When you do drastic things like this, sometimes you have to resculpt. So what I'll do is I'll just choose like an in-flat brush and kind of puff this out just to get more geometry. I could always fix this afterwards. So I could probably just puff this out like this and then just go to dynamesh here. Just click dynamesh. And then you could see it made like new, it made, cleaned it up a little bit. Oops. I think I'm still working in, yeah, I am. Okay. I see intensity is all the way up. Lower your smooth intensity, sometimes if you have to. And then you just kind of want to smooth it out, and then you can just rework this. So, it's basically we just cleaned it. Now we can just rework it any way we want. So what I'll do is I'll take a snake hook brush is a good brush for kind of pulling pieces out too. Like if you want these pieces to really look like a horn. In Zbrush 2018, I believe Snake Hook 2 was introduced as well. Oops. So maybe you want something like that. I usually would make a change like that. I would just smooth out the whole thing a little bit. And you could use the move brush and kind of pull it out. And then kind of maybe curve it a little bit. All right, so we can do something like that. And then we can hold, if you press Alt and then you just click a different subtool, you can select the subtool. See that? So if you hold Alt and you just click on a subtool, you can select the subtool. I think it's still on this one. That's how. So I just Alt click. So Alt click. You have to click like once. Alt click, or you can press N and then you can bring up a different subtool as well. However you want to do it. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'll probably use like a clay buildup on the edges here. And so this, just so this horn isn't kind of hanging off, you could do like a clay buildup. Just kind of go over it a little bit until it starts to kind of look okay. Give it some weight. Right, and this would kind of be like the general block out for this piece. You could smooth it out, then go back over it again. Turn up your smooth if you have to. Sometimes you might have to turn it up, turn it down. And what I'm doing is basically I'm just trying to get like trying to have this kind of like the skin is kind of wrapped around it. Clay brush is good to kind of follow back with now. So if we like kind of lower our clay brush here, and then we can just kind of zoom in. Oops. Make sure your RGB's off. Sometimes it stays on after you mess with stuff. You want to take that off. Then go back over it a little bit with the clay brush here. And I want to just build up here because it was looking like a little bit too inwards for me, for my liking at least. You can follow this back a little bit, make this run all the way to here. You could do, one of these kind of, I'm just going, up and down, up and down. You could do something like that. And then you could take like the damn standard brush and start cutting in on those areas. Maybe something like that. And what I'm showing is like kind of a quick and dirty way of doing things. I would really with anything, when it comes to like sculpting and stuff like this, it's really important to just take your time, because if you don't, you're going to spend hours doing it and it's not going to look good in the end if you do not take your time. So let me just see how this looks as a whole. And that's pretty much how you would go about separating it. I just all click on this. Now what I could do is I'll hit Control D to give this a subdivision level, and I can just start kind of probably I could just kind of hand paint with the Damien standard. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of just following like a form, going like this, like a swoosh. And this, what this does here is just kind of breaks it up. It breaks up the form. I'll hit Control D, and I'll make my brush a little bit smaller, and then I'll just kind of I'll add some more randomization in here. And I made, like I said, I made my brush smaller, so I'm going to get smaller strokes. And this gives you stroke variation too, which is important. But if I was doing this, I was looking at a horn right now, trying to figure out, what would look good. And maybe that's a little too strong, so I could come back and smooth it out if it feels too strong. All right. So yeah, so that is this is how we use polygroups, stuff like this. These horns look kind of weird, but let me try fix them. I'm kind of like rounding it out. I'm turning in different angles, and I'm looking at the silhouette, and I'm trying to just work those different angles and try to fix it. All right. Let's move along. I think that's good enough for now. Let's move along now. Okay. All right. So next, let's see. Let's look into now. Contact is something I don't touch. But basically what it does is it stores like a contact between different subtools, like from where you touch. If you hold Control, like I said, you can find out what these things do. But it even tells you that the C1 button will establish the first contact point that Zbrush will use to maintain distance between adjacent subtools. These contact points will allow rigid movement of any subtool within an adjacent target subtool. All three contact points will allow the selected subtool to move with the target mesh when posing is enabled. So this isn't something that I typically use. We have something new where we can group subtools and move them together with the move, scale, and rotate, which I kind of have to remember how to do because I haven't done in a minute. But basically, what you can do is you can group a bunch of subtools together and move them together with this, which I think is equivalent kind of to this, but I don't really use it. Okay, so let's move on to morph targets. Morph targets are awesome, and they will save your butt, basically, when you do certain things. So let's see, what would be a good example of using a morph target? I would say that a good example, first what you want to do is you want to store a morph target. So what is a morph target? A morph target saves this state. However everything is right now, it saves this. It remembers exactly how everything is right now. So I click a store morph target, okay? And then I start sculpting on my mesh. And what I'm going to do is we'll go back to, we will do an alpha spray, and we will grab, let's grab, I guess, let's grab this one here. Okay. So I have an alpha spray selected, and I have alpha 22. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of just spray all over this. You know, I'm on the wrong layer, so let me just switch it. Or you know what, matter of fact, I'm going to use this alpha 58, and we'll do a spray on the horns. We'll kind of just spray on the horns like that. And let's just say that you like some of the stuff going on, but you don't like this here. If you press B for brush and press M, you have something called a morph brush, and the morph brush is going to morph it back to the state before you did this. So if I kind of just go over this a little bit, you know, if this is too harsh, I can dial it back with the morph brush. You know, I don't like how harsh some of this is, but maybe I want to keep some of it, right? So I am dialing it back with the morph brush. And Zbrush remembers it because I stored a morph target before I made all these changes. So it's going back to that. All right, so that is what that does. That's what storing a morph target does. And then here you could switch geometry. I believe switch just switches it. The button stores the current object's geometry as its morph target and reverts it to the shape of the previous morph target. So this will revert everything back to before you made it. You can delete your morph target, create a different mesh as well. The new tool is composed only of the polygons, which are different from the morph target. And then you have some settings for changing the morph. I generally don't mess with these settings, but usually like before we Z project, we'll store a morph target because sometimes there'll be errors in the projection and you'll have to kind of just dial back certain things and fix them by using your morph brush to morph back to the original state. What I'm going to do is I'll click here and I'm going to store another morph target. And I just hope this really hits home with you guys, but I'm going to store a morph target here and I'm just going to, actually I'm going to do something a little extreme. I'm just going to go like this, okay? And then if I press B and I press M, I can go to morph. And with my morph brush, and with the morph brush here, with the RGB off, make sure that's off. What I can do is I can actually go back to before I did all those crazy changes. See what it's doing? So it's going back to when I stored the morph target. So nothing was actually destroyed because I stored that morph target. So nothing was actually ruined, you know? I hope that makes sense here. And maybe you kind of like some of this stuff, so, you know, you just keep it a little bit. Like I like these cracks maybe in the lips that it made. And I can tap, tap, tap to kind of get rid of things I don't want or keep things. When you tap it, it kind of, it's weird, but when you tap it, when you do tap, 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 it's, how do I explain it? It's more like subtle, you know, when you get rid of stuff. There's like it's like a technique kind of. The tap, tap, tap technique. So that's what a morph target does. Um, Next thing, let's go and go to Polypaint. And I didn't teach you guys Polypaint yet, but you know, now's a good time, I guess, to learn it, right? So we will Polypaint our dragon. Make sure colorize is on. This allows you to colorize your mesh. What I want to explain about polypainting is that before you can even polypaint, you need to make sure you have a really dense mesh, because what it does is it puts the color in each of these squares. So if you ever had like an old TV, you could basically see like the pixels on the TV screen because there's not enough resolution. I mean, these days, if you buy a TV, you know, you can't see any of the squares. Everything's a seamless image. but it's consisted of those little squares. So colorize just paints a color on every square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Alt, I'm going to click, since I taught you guys that new shortcut, and I'll select the dragon here. I'm going to change the brush. Okay, just want to make sure I was on the layer. And what I'm going to do is I'll grab the standard brush, and I'll use color spray instead of spray. And I think I will take alpha off, and then I'll choose a color. So first I'll just choose this green, because this is the base color. And maybe the base I want to be like in the middle here. So I'll put it here. What I'm gonna do is I'll put the base here. I'm gonna hit RGB first, right? I'm gonna do a fill object. What that did was that filled that with the base color that I just made, right? Then I'm gonna take the green and I'm gonna make it brighter. And then what I'll do is any areas I want to kind of have more emphasis, I'm gonna use the color spray on. So maybe around his eyes I want more color. Maybe on his head I want some more color. Maybe on his nose I want some more color. And now what we're actually doing is we're actually laying in paint on our model. We're laying it in the squares. You're not going to be able to see it, but we're literally laying it in the squares. And that's what Polypaint does. Yeah, so let's Polypaint this. Oops. I always hit the plus and minus buttons. When you hit plus and minus, it kind of like, it zooms in on your model. It's weird. I always do that though. I don't know. So like I said, I'm using like color spray, and we'll just do something quick. You don't have to use a color spray either. So I'm going to take that off in a second, so you know what I mean. But first, let's add in those colors and hit some of these areas with color. Now I'm gonna put the the eyelids. I don't know. I had them on separate layer, but I'm gonna. You know what? I'll just paint on top of them. I think I'll just. We could probably paint on them like that if we wanted to, or maybe a darker color. All right, so now we have our color lay in. Now we can use a darker color. Like I just picked a darker color, and maybe under the eyes it's a little darker. You know, maybe here it's a little darker. We're still using color spray right now. In his nose, it's going to be dark. If you have a hard time like selecting, you take off the spray and do a freehand, and use an alpha like a soft, like with a radius like that, like a feather effect. And you could actually just go in here and paint. All right, so you can just go in here and paint, and then make it a little darker even, to give like, to give the illusion of death. Something like that. And then you could always just drag and hold to color pick a different area. And you can make it area brighter. Okay. So what I'll do is I made the area a little brighter here. Oh, let me see how that looks. Is that really doing that? Let's see. Let's try. Pick this screen. Let's do a bright. Yeah, almost yellow. Let's see what. Um. And you can kind of just lay things in like this. Let's see here. 1 second here. One. Sorry about that. Oh man, I always get spam calls and robo-dialers. It's like nonstop, you know. These people calling you all the time. And I'll just change the color, and you can hand paint in the cracks area. Oops. One of my brushes actually left. I left the standard brush when I was trying to paint, so I can go back and mess with that. If you're getting too much too, you can lower your RGB intensity to get more, like a subtle effect, depending on what you're going for. Paint certain areas out. And you can take green and blend it back. If things look too dark, take color underneath and just blend it back. Turn up the intensity. Oops, I must have hit the wrong button. That's weird. 1 second. So I lost my Polypaint information. This is why it's good to save often. When the paintbrush is selected, that means you can paint on the layer, but it must have like filled the object on me or something, and I can't revert back. So let's just choose another base and we'll click fill object. And then we'll describe like a yellowish color. Maybe he has like a bone jaw or something. Like a rocky jaw. And then I will choose like a different color. Um, kind of just go back over this, like the dark areas. Well, make it dark, Make it small too if it's too big. Make your brush smaller. Bigger and smaller with the bracket keys. You can even add like, you could paint in some cracks if you wanted to. Maybe there's a little bit of a color spray. So use a variation of techniques. Color spray it. You try different things out. Don't be scared to experiment. You know what I mean? It's all about having fun and making something cool, right? So just get in there and do it. Just do it. Let's see what we can do for these lips. Maybe he has like darker lips. I don't know. That's not going to work for me. That's giving us that color spray. I don't think we want to do that color spray there. So let's do, instead of color spray, let's do a freehand and pick like a darker color. I'm trying to see, maybe I want like a dark purplish for his lips. I mean, you could just keep them continuously painting over your model too. Like, if something isn't working, just paint over it. Just keep painting over it, you know, if this doesn't work for you. I don't know if this is going to work, but I think I just want his top lips to have that. If it did have that purple. So I'll just Control Z, undo, undo, undo. And what you can do is, if something's not working, you can kind of blend it in. You know, just pick the color near there, and maybe just blend it back. If it's too strong, you know, kind of blend it back. Because I wanted him to have like purplish lips, but not like super purple. So let's just keep that for now. In his mouth, it would probably be like a dark reddish color, like this, which nobody will be able to see. That's not true. You can see it. You say like, you know, like the roof of his mouth, I guess you would. Oops. And I'm manually painting this in, so you tilt it if you're not getting the paint the way you want. You can kind of just tilt it and paint and move it over a little bit. Now I'm just doing some strokes here. Try to fill in these areas. You could also use your lazy mouse too with the Polypaint. So if we go to stroke and lazy mouse is already on, but you know, if we raise that lazy radius, we can get more control when we're painting. So it'll make this kind of area a lot easier, for example. Go over that a little bit with the lazy mouse. just to make sure that we're doing justice inside the mouth here. Oops. You see that area still needs to be. You can actually use masks. I can't say it. Masks as well. You can paint in mask too, and then paint. So I could just make a mask here and then just start painting, and it won't go past the mask. Some of these areas. This is why polygrouping is good too, because if I made a polygroup, I would have been all set for this. Hold on 1 second. God. Hey, sorry about that. I had a phone call here. Okay. I got to relearn After Effects so I can start editing my videos. I haven't messed with After Effects since I went to school for graphic design. I originally went to school for graphic design in Pennsylvania, and I learned After Effects, and we used to make like illustrations, like an Illustrator and stuff like that. And I would take it into After Effects, and I would illustrate the different pieces. So I would make like a robot illustration, right? And I would take different shapes of the robot, and I would animate it in After Effects of it kind of coming together and make like a cool like glow effect. But I haven't used After Effects in so long. I think it's pretty much stayed the same for the most part, but I need to learn it so I can make better intros and quality and kind of organize things here. So for now, expect for now, for the time being, just expect interruptions. Things do happen, but in the future, I will be working to make my videos a bit more pro, definitely, to give better quality to you guys. Because I want to be able to teach you guys without any interruptions or anything like that. So apologize about that. So we kind of painted this a little bit. What we're kind of doing is we're just going over what we already have. And I think if you hit F, is it flat map? Is it B? I can't remember. There's a way to kind of see like a flat map too of your poly painting. I think it's flat shader. It's in here. I think flat color. Yeah, but you know what? You know why it's not showing again is because the material is baked in. So if we do fill object, this is what our poly paint information looks like right now on a flat shader. So this is like just flat. This is basically what it's looking like right now. So if we're not happy with any of that, we can fix that up. So yeah, we can fix it up there. You could also change your alphas too to like a spray alpha or something, and you could spray it like that to give it a cool effect. I'm gonna change the skin shader, and I'll hit fill objects. Oops, I did not want to do that. We'll go back. Just click material and hit fill object. And then what you can do is you can kind of just go back over this and see if any of this works anywhere. I mean, you know what? It looks like really bright. Could just be the green I used. Kind of looks like tire track marks or something. If I use a spray on this, it might look a little better. Yeah. Definitely spray it. Will look better a little bit. So we can kind of spray it a little bit. This just gives it a little bit more of a texture, And then we can make it a little brighter. Go back over some areas. And this gives it that look, that bumpy look. Oh man, was this really all green? Gotta fix that. Let's grab this color. I'm just going back over it a couple times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let it kind of run into this other part. Oops. When you use spray, we don't have complete control over things sometimes, so you might want to use a different way of doing things. I'm going to use an alpha for now, I think, and I'm going to select like this color here. I don't know if that color's really working. Maybe this one. That'll work. Take off the lazy mouse if you have issues. But yeah, essentially what we're doing is we're polypainting our model, and it's awesome. You know, if you can learn how to polypaint, it'll really help you. It can really help you because you can bake your polypaint into textures, and whatever you have polypainted, this could be in game. You know, you can have this in game like this in a game engine. I'm kind of just color selecting different colors here and trying to get rid of all that green. It's messing it up a little bit in the process, but it happens sometimes. Just go back and clean it up. Color pick it, paint it in. Color pick here, paint it in. Color pick this, paint it in. Just start blending all these different colors in. And then we can go back over it again afterwards if we want to. But you get the idea of what I'm trying to accomplish here. Yeah, polypainting is a lot of fun. Now let's see what we can do to kind of remedy the green. I did like this dark green, so maybe this might look a little bit better. I think the dragon was looking a bit cartoony to me. I'm trying to see if that's good for a base. All right, maybe we take this orange and then we just make it green. Half of the battle sometimes just finding that right color, you know. This might get a little obliterated, but we can always fix it. Like I said, there's nothing set in stone here, so we can always fix any of this. We're just painting on top of paint, and you can do it as many times as you want. So there's no reason not to make a mess. Yeah, maybe I'll fill this whole thing with green. I don't. For the most, except these spikes up top, they wouldn't really be green. I would make these a different color. Maybe even this color to keep it consistent. We could try that. I mean, we can just grab this white here, right? We don't have to make it a new subtool. We can fake it. You know, we can just do one of these. Not everything has to be its own subtool. We could just fake it like that if we wanted to. Kind of round that off to make it look a little bit more like it belongs. That won't work too good. All right, so maybe something like that, right? And then we can go ahead, oops, and we can take this white and make it a little yellowish maybe. Yeah, you know, like I said, you could just add some variation to it. Maybe we'll do this spray again, and we'll do color spray and see what that gets us. Maybe that might get us something cool. Maybe at the base it might get us something cool. If we do it at the base, it'll work. It'll get something cool probably. Probably have to make a mask. Can make a mask with the lasso tool, and then just go over it a little bit. It's one way of doing it. We could probably do it like that, and then take off the spray, and then freehand it back to clean it up. Oops. I'm really going in on this Polypaint just so you can see the capabilities of it and how awesome. It's a lot of fun, you know. It's awesome to use. I want to make sure that you really understood how to use Polypaint. Um, One thing I see like a lot of beginners do, they don't use Polypaint at all, and you're missing out on the fun. You know, definitely get into the Polypaint. It's it's awesome. It awesome. You know, what you can do is you can kind of go over areas. If we take that green and we really bump it up high, you know, we can start to kind of highlight different areas that, you know, maybe the light would hit. We call this what fake lighting, pretty much. Just adding these fake highlights in there where the light might hit something. The light would probably really hit like on his forehead, you know. Not like that, but this, you know, nothing is flat and everything has a highlight most of the time. And this kind of helps break it up. It's dark and light values when you paint. Dark light, dark light, dark. Trying to see if this works. I don't like it. So you can kind of just add that in there like that. I'm unsure about this part here. This is more like a bony area, so I'm thinking like maybe he has like some kind of bone. So maybe if we use like make a gold or a yellowish color. I think what I want to do is I want to spray in a color here. I don't know if I like that. Sometimes you really just got to go back and forth, try different things, and until you get something that you like. I think I might just make this darker. It's underneath. Maybe it's just a darker color. I don't know. I'm not sure how I want to do that part yet. We can give fake shadowing and stuff. I would take out the color spray, but let's see if we do, yeah, freehand. This is all underneath him, so it'd probably be really dark on me. And if it don't look right, if it looks too fake, just go back over it and fix it. And make it softer. Sometimes you gotta go over it a few times to really get like a subtle kind of look like that. We can color pick this area. We can bump this up a little bit, and we can just highlight this up a little bit. Going back over this white. I think it was just too white. Too white for my liking. So we're going to get rid of that. Remember, you can make your brushes bigger or smaller, whatever you want. You can see, like, when I draw, I get like those dots. So sometimes if you're too small, that's why you're getting those dots. And just mess around. See what looks good. Trying to follow the shapes I already made. You don't want to fight against what you created, But it really is a back and forth process at the end of the day. I think what this is missing is, well, definitely missing some dark areas. If you lose your model, hit F. Sometimes ZBrush messes up. You can see like how it's doing it right now. Like if I hit scale, if I hit the zoom button, it just kind of jumps. Sometimes that happens. If you hit Control N, you might usually be able to get out of it. Not sure if I'm going to be able to get out of this one. Or if you switch to another subtool and go back, that sometimes fixes it as well. Let me see if that fixed it. Nope. I'll try to save it real quick. ZBrush can crash sometimes, so, and mess up. Okay, we're back in action. Sorry about that. It happens sometimes. It's just one of those things, We could probably use a color spray on this. I like color spray because it kind of like blends the colors together, and you can lower your intensity and really fine tune things. Just it'll break it out. It'll give it a texture, like on the surface. Really give your stuff a texture this way. And you can see if I hold it down, I really get a texture out of it. Like too much. When you use things subtly, though, it really helps. It really helps sell it. Sometimes, like, if you use like the base of these lips maybe or something, it might sell it a little better. Maybe his lips kind of come out a little bit more. They kind of blend into his skin or something. Just try different things. and then go back over it with the green to blend it in nicely. Pick like a really dark color here. Let's clean up that nose again. So I'll do the nose again one more time. And again, you could always render this too at any point to see how things are looking as well. Let's fix this bottom a little bit. Kind of just stops abruptly. And I think what we need to do is work on spraying that back. This is something that wouldn't just stop abruptly, I think. I don't know if I want this to be the same. And color pick something else. And try to give your stuff variation. Really sell it, you know. Really sell what you're doing. A little rougher under his chin. We'll make it darker under his chin a little bit. That'll give it like a little upward fade. I have a spray on, so turn the freehand on to get the nice solid stroke like that. Then you can go back over it. Maybe you want something like that. Or maybe it's just a little bit. You can kind of just hit it from the sides, up, which will look a little better. It's not like overkill, you know? Instead of like one straight line, just do it like a little bit here, a little bit there. Give it a break up, you know. Let's see what else we can do. Let me try color spray and color spray up here. That gets in his mouth. And you can see there's some areas you could see that are still not 100%. Go back to that alpha. So it's usually like a back and forth process, you know. Take your time. Take your time in this process. All right, it's starting to look a little better. You can even have like more extreme highlights or something. You know, maybe this is more extreme here. This one's a little more extreme. A little more highlight on his front of his nose. You know, what areas would catch light. It's kind of like the name of the game, you know. And just dark and light to bring out those shapes. So, like I said, back and forth, dark light, dark light. It just kind of dips in a little bit, make that dark. Maybe this part's a little dark. This is a little dark. That gives it, you know, another level. Maybe here's a little dark. Need to be a little subtle with this, but right there is a little dark. All right, cool. So let me show you guys. Let's save this so we don't lose anything. And let's do eyes. We can click a ball. Oops, click an eyeball here to zoom in on it. You can see right now it looks pixelated because there's not a lot of geometry, so we can just kind of go up a little bit. I think it's a good example to show you what happens when you paint on it when it's not high geometry. Is that you don't know if you really see it here, but you see it's painting in the squares, but when there's just a little bit of squares, you don't get what you really want. So just go Control D, duplicate it up until it looks nice and smooth like that. Now when you paint it, it's going to look good. Let me bring back the eye so we can see what's going on here. So the thing is with this, right, is the material itself, it has like a light kind of reflection in it. So that's why, you know, painting the eyes isn't going to work. So what we'll need to do is we're going to select a different material that we can actually paint on. I think a basic material, I think this basic material 2 might work better for us. So let's switch to basic material 2 and paint these eyeballs in here. Yeah. Now if we go back, we can actually see what's going on a little better. Okay. So, you know, it depends on what kind of eyes you're going for, really. But we can kind of just make this all white or something, or you know, I like to look at everything as a whole and just see if it's working or not. Which I don't think is this color spray. No, this isn't color spray. I don't think this basic material is working for us. Maybe toy plastic might work. Yeah, I think toy plastic's going to work a little better for us. That material might work a little better for us. Yeah, you could see when I paint in this eyeball thing, it's a soft brush basically. If we want a hard brush, we can choose this Alpha 06, and we'll get like a little harder shape. I think actually, here it is. Is it Alpha 14 is the hardest? I'm not sure which one's the hardest. I think Alpha 14 is the hardest. But yeah, you can get a harder shape that way. All right, cool. So let's see what we would do here. So let's first, you know, kind of go in like this a little bit, give it some shadowing. Um, You could paint the color first. You could do drag rect. So if you do drag rectangle, you can drag on it like an eyeball. You see the RGB intensities down, turn it up to 100. And you could do a drag like that. And then you can go over it if you wanted to or something. Or the feathering out. So sometimes what we do is we would just go over this a few times. That's one way to go about it. And just figure out, what you want, how you want it to look. I'm gonna redo this because I'm probably just gonna manually paint it in now. I usually have better luck with that. You can see like you can kind of just paint it in. It's I don't know. It's like a little easier to manage. You could do a shadow too. You could make a mask. You could make a mask with that shape. This has there. And then we'll do a drag rec. Let's do a drag rec mask. And how come it's let's see what's going on here. It's kind of smoothing it out, but it's all right. I don't care about it. I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to do it the other way. Kind of looks like he's looking down, so maybe he has reptile eyes. You can do it any way you want. Maybe he has reptile eyes. If you hold Alt, it selects your second color, which is black in this case. And so you do something like that. And then you could just kind of go in there like that. Pick a different color. Pick a softer alpha maybe. And pick different what do you call it? Pick different colors to give it some variation. Maybe really make this black. You don't need to give this one fake highlights because it has kind of does it for you. But you could usually just go like this, and if you want to give it a fake highlight or something, you could just kind of go on the surface with a white and go like that if you wanted to or something. We're like maximum white though, like when we fill this in, so it's not going to work. But you could do something like that. It really is, like I said, it's a back and forth process. And you can do a render and see if it works or not. If it doesn't work, try something else. This is entirely up to you. Go over it a few times. Make it dark, a darker black maybe. Just add some randomization. I mean, if I was doing this, I'd be looking at reference though of like a reptile or something. Maybe a reptile eye. I think I'll just fill in the top, and then we'll call this done. So yeah, so there is the eyes. Kind of looks like he's looking down. And if it looks like he's looking down too much, you could just take the eyes and rotate them too. Maybe bring them in a little bit. The position, the way the eyes are rotated, it really can be important as well. And now he looks like he's looking at you. We'll leave that for now. And then you could just render it out and see how it looks. Yeah, I'm not really feeling the eyes, but you get it. You get the idea. You get the idea. All right, let's move along here. So cool. We kind of painted this guy in a little bit, which is cool. I'm gonna save this. Let me just double check something real quick. All right, sorry. Okay. So that is poly painting. Oh, you can paint material too, which I probably should have said. If you press M, and I want some of this toy plastic on this or something, I could paint that in more. I can paint that in as well. So you can actually paint materials in as well. Like it doesn't have to be on a new layer. So if I want to make this a little shiny or something, I can just paint it in. Isn't that awesome? And then it just takes that material. This is like super shiny. Like this certain material is like really shiny. I probably pick like this skeleton material and paint that in though, just to keep it consistent with the horns. So let's do that. You can kind of just lay that in there. And we're not painting with color, we're only painting with material right now. Little overlapsation though at the bottom. Probably a mask would be better. Or blend it better maybe. Or maybe Alpha 01. No. So I could always change it later on if I wanted to. But I mean honestly it's better just to have these things separate. If it's a different material, it should be on a separate subtool to make your life a lot easier. As you can see here, I'm getting a bit of a mess. Alright, so yeah, it has that same material now. That bony material. Alright, cool. Alright, so that's poly painting. The other thing that's useful in poly painting is the cavity mask. And cavity mask is here under masking, mask by cavity. You can click mask by cavity and then start painting. And I don't know. I think or is it mask by peaks and valleys? Yeah, we can basically go in here and fill in certain areas that are to give it more of an effect. Mask by smoothness. What's that one do? Mask by smoothness might help us a little bit. But basically it makes a mask and then you could just go over the mask with a different color. So I could probably go over it with this dark. Like if I go over this with a dark color and then I let go, then this is painted in there. Okay. So that's kind of how that works. The mask by cavity is usually the thing that's really helpful. No blur, maybe. Let me see. Oh yeah, take off the blur. Maybe that's why. We'll do mask by cavity. We'll increase the intensity. We'll take off the blur, and then let me just see what it does. I probably want the inverse of that. Maybe no. Nah. I'm sorry, but yeah, mask by cavity is definitely what you would want to do. I just don't know how to get good results off the top right now. But basically, there's a way you can get really good results, and then you can just mask in any areas that are like inwards and stuff, so you can fill them in with a darker color. So that would be the other thing that you would do with that. All right. You could also polypaint from polygroups, um, which is basically you know how to make polygroups already. But polypaint from polygroups button will convert polygroups to polypaint on the selected subtool. All right, so I'm going to kind of go down this list. I'm not really going to do anything in there. UV mapping is when you UV something. You can create a UV map or whatever, and you can choose how big the map is. So if I want a 2K map, I can click 2K and then just click, you can create a UV map here and stuff like that. I'm not gonna do this though. I don't make my UVs in ZBrush personally. I make it in 3ds Max, but you could use UV Master and you could do your UVs in this program if you wanted to, and like transfer to painting detail and stuff. which I haven't showed you guys yet, but there is a UV master here. So you could just like, unwrap everything. You could just choose unwrap, and what it'll do, it'll take this model and unwrap it. You would want to be lower resolution, like when you do this though. But I typically don't use this method though. You can see I got the hourglass because I tried to unwrap this and it's huge. So don't do that. Can't escape out of it. Hold on. Sometimes it'll fix itself, but sometimes it won't. Like right now, it's not fixing itself, so it's okay. All right, let's jump back into ZBrush. Like I said, this program can crash sometimes. I mean, any program can crash sometimes, so it's to be expected. All right, so it's going to say that it crashed last time, which we know about. We can just go back to load tool, load it in there, and get everything back. All right, so we got it. We got this back again. The only reason this looks like this is because we never painted in the detail in that. We never baked it in on the horns. So we could just take that skeleton and hit RGB or M for material and fill the object. Well, I guess mRGB. mRGB makes it a little whiter. Want that yellowish. Let's grab that same yellow. It's a little yellower. Grab here. Fill. All right, that's good. The only thing this dragon is missing, obviously, is teeth. We'll give them teeth a little later, just for fun. All right, so let's go through here. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. And we're kind of skipping the UV map for now. We'll do UVs in another one. Texture map. You could basically add a text, load a texture to project onto your thing, your dragon or whatever. Which I'm not going to do right now though, or you can make a new texture here and all this stuff, and then you could fill it. You could fill the material. You can fill it with the current material. You can fill it with the current color, or you can fill it with the gradient. All right, so that this texture is different from. This is a texture though. Like you can pick textures in here, but if you apply it, it'll apply it to your mesh. But your mesh has to have UVs in it. That's why this is UVs and then it's texture. That's the steps of things. Displacement map is usually used like in movies and stuff. A displacement map gives the illusion basically of like geometry kind of on the surface. It bumps it up on the surface. It displaces it, and it's non-destructive because it's a map. So that's what a displacement map is. We're not really going to go over that right now. A normal map is the red, green, and it's like the red, green, and blue channels, I believe it is, and it's normal map would make like the way this point pulls out on the surface, it would give the illusion of that. Like you can put this kind of detail in a low res mesh in game. Your normal map will make it look like it's really bumped out on the surface. But we'll go over those in another lesson. That's another thing. Don't worry about that right now. All we're worrying about right now is just sculpting and like painting in ZBrush. The vector displacement map is something I haven't really used much. So we'll get back to that one. Display properties. I generally don't mess with these settings. Sometimes you might want to make double-sided. If you have a mesh and you're seeing the one side of it, click double. Or if you bring it in from another program and it looks inside out, you can click flip, and it'll flip the normals, which will fix your mesh. If you only this is only if you have errors, you could do those things. And then there's some more there's some BPR settings here. I generally don't mess with these. And the BPR is right here, by the way. Unified skin. We didn't learn unified skin yet. But if we click make unified skin, it'll make a skin of whatever we have selected. You see it says skin dyno. So when I click make unified skin, it made a skin of what we had selected, if that makes sense. And it put it as a separate thing. So it took this and it made a skin out of it. So that, I mean, that could be useful for something quick. This really plays a role like when you're doing Z-spheres and stuff like that. Probably would the unified skin probably make a little bit more sense. Initialize, we kind of went over that, to initialize briefly. Initialize just has to do with like when you're first initializing a shape. I guess that's the best way to say it. And okay, if I take this gear, for example, like we just took this gear, right? We just brought it in here. This is like one of the default things you can do in ZBrush. So this gear is part of ZBrush, you know, basically. But under initialize, you know, you could tweak it. You could tweak things. I don't even know if anything's going to change here. Probably not. You used to be able to tweak things under initialize. You know, with the newer versions, things changed. But originally, I remember when you went initialize, you could tweak stuff in here. Maybe I have to make it a Polymesh 3D first. No, I'm sorry. I'm not getting what I want from this. But generally, when the old initialize in the old version of ZBrush was when you would go there, you could make this shape different. You know, you could cut it in half. You know, change the number of spikes and stuff it had. You could do all sorts of manipulations to it. But I don't know how we do it in ZBrush 2018. Things have changed a lot, so I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to look into that and let you guys know. Right now we can only initialize a sphere, a cube, a grid, cylinder. I mean, if I hit cube, it just turns it into a cube, but doesn't really help us out. If we wanted to tweak, I wanted to be able to tweak the shape. That was the main thing. But that's what initialize does. So if you need to initialize a cube, let's say you need to initialize a cube, you got a cube here. You can see the resolution is like 85. So let's bring this down to like 2. Hit Q cube again. You get better resolution. We can bring this resolution down to 2. Hit Q cube again. And we get a perfect square. So we got the X, Y, and Z right here for the resolution. So this is good because Well, especially like for a spear, originally there would be like a pole in the spear up top, and you would have to make it in another 3D program, and they rectified that. So now you get this nice shape like this, and it's easier to work with. You get your move brush, and you could start pulling out the points and everything, and it's much easier to work with than if you had something like with a pole in it. So you could basically just start making a head, using a cube. Then you can duplicate it and further refine it and everything like that. Uh, However you wanted to do it. I'm not going to make a head right now, but or you can make like an alien head. So this is good though, like to get like a base going on. You could use these cubes to make bases, basically. It's a good way to start. It's another way to start, I would say. The initialize is another way to start. And then you can keep appending different shapes and going crazy. Like, if I control D this a couple times, you can get something going on pretty fast. And it's clean. Like the geometry is very clean. So hopefully that makes sense. This is just another way, to start, to really just start out and to get some stuff going on. So Q cube and cube spear is definitely something you might want to use. Import, I don't use this. I don't use this import button here. The import tool button imports a 3D object from OBJ. Well, we have an import button up here, right here, and I just use that. If I need to import a mesh, I use that. This one might have some extra settings in it. It has an add to mesh. It has a merge point. It also has a triangle to quads. So if you needed to turn triangle to quads, I mean, we could use Zbrush to do that now. So you don't really need to worry about imports so much, I don't believe. Export, same thing. I don't use export usually. There might be times where you need to use, before you export, you might need to flip your faces or change it to triangles for another program. Like if you're bringing it into a certain game engine, you might click try and then export it out so it's all triangulated. But typically I do not use that feature either. All right, so we actually did go through the tool. It was a little long, but we went through the tool menu. We'll probably use this shape to make our teeth, by the way. Let's see if we can get through transform. And in transform, we have our move, scale, and rotate, which is right here as well. Okay. Then we have our Gizmo 3D. We hit move, and you can see this is the Gizmo 3D, which is Y. The keyboard shortcut's Y. If you press this, you'll get like the old method. This was our old way of doing things. We would press this to move things. I have symmetry turned on, so anything I do on one side does it on the other. But you would drag out this line, and then you would just kind of move things around. See that? And you could see like right here, I just got a nice hard shape by doing that. So this still has its usage. This still has its usage, but we usually use this one, the Y one. And you can kind of do the same. Now we have kind of like a hard surface shape going on here. So that's the Gizmo. The Gizmo 3D switches. If you press Y, it switches between the 3D Gizmo. Edit Spotlight. We already went over Spotlight. snapshot object. I didn't teach you guys snapshotting an object, so I will teach that right now to you. Snapshot just allows you to make a snapshot of your object. Makes sense, right? Shift S is the keyboard shortcut. So what I would usually do is just kind of make this bigger here. I'll double the document size. I'll hit Control N. I'll redraw this out. I'll go back into edit mode. And then you could do a Shift S for a snapshot. Oops. And then what you can do, I'm going to use my keyboard actually. Okay, and you can just kind of drag this out. So this is good just to maybe if you're showing a client or something, the different angles of the dragon you made. You can do a snapshot. This one's the only one I can actually rotate now. This snapshot it's like a picture now. I hit Shift S again, and then I can move down another snapshot possibly. Yep. And then maybe want to show him the back. So this is a snapshot right here. And then what you could do is you can go to export screen grab. Click export screen grab, and we'll just save it to the desktop. We'll call it Zbrush screen grabbing. Click save. Let me see if it works. That's how you would usually do that. Or you could just do a print screen. And then to clear out of a snapshot, you would just press Control N. Control N. And then you're back in action. You can double click to reopen this. So that's what the snapshot is. This is another move, scale, and rotate. This moves the camera over here though. Move, zoom, and rotate. Move, zoom, rotate. But we can do that with our keyboard shortcuts by Alt dragging to move. Hold Alt, let go of Alt, but keep your Wacom on your tablet, and you can just zoom in and out. And then to rotate, you just move your pen on your Wacom, or you can left click with your mouse. Well, if you're using a mouse, well, you shouldn't be, but if you are using a mouse, you hold Alt, left click, drag around. Let go of Alt, but keep the left button on your mouse held down, and you could zoom in and out. Left click, and just go like this, and you can rotate around your model. And remember, you can shift snap to snap to different views. Shift snap, shift snap, shift snap. Okay. This allows it when you rotate it. Do you want to rotate on just the y-axis? You can. You can rotate it on just the y-axis if you wanted to, or the z-axis. I usually keep it on the x, y, and z. Frame mesh, we already showed you guys frame mesh. Frame mesh is just when you frame it to fit into the window. So if I make it really small, if I hit frame mesh, it's going to kind of zoom in now on it. Hit F. Now I kind of framed it into the center there. That's what frame mesh is. You could set a pivot point. I'm not going to do that, but if you set a pivot point, it enables you to define the center point for rotating, deforming, and symmetrical editing and other actions. So if you move this and you hit a set pivot point, it's going to set that as the main pivot point. It could mess up your symmetry as well. So it's useful though when you're doing hard surface and stuff like that. But I typically don't press it. Local symmetry. If your symmetry is messed up, you could do local symmetry. Like if your model's off to the side here, you can't do symmetry properly. You can do local symmetry, so to localize it to the object. This one, visible symmetry center. Well, I'm not really sure what that does. I don't even see anything happening when it's on. The transfer palette, yeah. Not sure about that one, but it's on by default. Keep it on. Expose, explode your model. So if I click expose, it just separates my model. And this might be easy for you, like if you were going to texture it or something, bring in another program, maybe you want to explode it first or something, and then you can always do it and make it come back again like that. and bring it back together by clicking expose again. Local transformations, usually keep that on. I wouldn't really take that off. Quick edit, quick 3D edit. Not even sure what that one is, but it's on by default. With the quick 3D button, 3D objects in edit mode are displayed without smoothing, revealing all polygon edges. Okay. I usually keep it on. Poly frame we already went over. Poly density. Okay, so this is where all when you turn this on, it shows you where you have the most poly information, like the density of the poly mesh. If it's red, it's very dense. And I think if it's blue, it's not so dense. So that's what that is, I believe. Dots display. I don't mess with that. The dots button causes 3D tools to be displayed in the wireframe mode when transformation or editing is performed. Um, uh, that crashed when I used that. Um, the dots display. Certain things I don't use. I mean, I don't know. There's no real point for me to use that dots display thing, to be honest. So certain times, things might crash like that. Don't even worry about the dots display. You can see right here we can recover a document, or we could just load tool. But it shows you like a thumbnail of the project you were working on. I'll just try to load my tool again. I don't think we really did anything to it anyway, so oops. I just clicked a billion buttons at once. Oh, the only thing we did was change the horn color. That was it. So I'll do a quick alt, and then we'll just choose that bone color real quick, and then we'll make this a little white right there, and then we'll just turn on the RGB. All right, so that's done. I did it real quick. Let's pull back the transform menu. Yeah, so dots. Don't click dots. Solo mode. We use solo mode down here all the time. And it says you can click and document to go solo mode, but I'm not even sure how that works. I usually just click the solo button. That isolates everything. Point selection mode. I don't use that. I'm not going to mess with it. Transparency. We really didn't use transparency yet, but if you click transparency, you can see how other objects are affecting other objects. Like how deep is this into this other object? Transparency is good though for a lot of stuff, for things that you're unable to see. Okay. So transparency is definitely something that we do want to use when we work. And that's that. Activate symmetry. We've learned about symmetry up to this point just using the x-axis. And you can see right now we're sculpting an x. We could sculpt in other axes though too. Like we turn on x and y. Oops. If we turn on the x and y axis at the same time, now we're sculpting on the top here, and we're sculpting at the bottom as well. Okay. So this is the x and this is the y axis. So we're sculpting. And then you could see too, if we turn on Z, and we're sculpting in every axis there is. So that's doing that. Okay. So we can literally sculpt in every axis we want. Radial symmetry is fun. Basically what radial symmetry is, like, you can hit up certain areas. This is, see how radial is not hitting it where I want. Maybe local symmetry might work. No, it's not. But Radial symmetry, basically. Actually, you know what? Mess with the axis. Let's try the y-axis. So the y-axis will give us radial symmetry in this axis here. And what it does is it goes around radially and gives you brushes radially. See that? See how I'm getting a brush like that? That's what radial symmetry does. Okay. Maybe Z might be better. No, Z's not going to be better. Nope, Z won't be better for this. It's okay. But you can really go crazy. Your radial count, you can up your radial count, let's say like to 25 or some crazy number like that. And you could really just start, going crazy on this. And like I said, radial symmetry is literally making it like a radial cut. Typically you use this for radial symmetry. You can typically use like if you're making like a column or a cool fancy design on a vase or something. This worked better more or less on cylindrical objects. So with that being said, let's append a sphere and we'll go solo mode. And then we will activate symmetry, activate radial symmetry, and just hover and you'll see the direction. This is what we want. Yeah. Okay. And we'll kind of duplicate this a few times. And what this is going to do is stuff like this, radial symmetry is good for this kind of stuff. So maybe if I'm making like some kind of design, you can quickly get details. If you're doing like a sword, you could do radial symmetry. I could do, a sword like that maybe or something. And follow back like that. So you get some cool details pretty fast. And you could also use alphas with radial symmetries, which is really awesome. So if I do like a drag rect, you can get some cool effects. I'm using like a star right now. Okay. And you can see you get some crazy, you get detail really quick. It's awesome. We could do the reverse. And we can go back over what like a damn standard. You can add lines or something. Where you can just kind of go back over your shapes again. One sec. All right, so that's everything, guys. In the next part, we'll look into our Z plugin menu. So I will see you for part 7. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.